Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. Today, I am honored to have Osayi Osunde with me. Let me tell you about this guy. We're going to hear a lot of pivotal moments in his story, but what he does today. He's the owner of Fit Academy and a very established college career and then professional NFL career. So excited to have you on and sharing your story. So thanks for being here.
Hey, Phil, man, I really appreciate it. I'm excited to be on the show as well.
Absolutely. So let's kick it off. You are not originally from the United States. Your family moved here. So talk about the early years and coming to the United States and just the transition that is.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I was born in Nigeria. So outside of Lagos, Benin City, about 3 hours east of it. And we spent, the first 2 years of my life there. My father was a professor. My mom was a teacher at the time, so he would travel back and forth between the United States and Nigeria for his education. So we ended up landing in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania, the middle of nowhere, and he had a job at the Bloomsburg University as a history professor there. So I was young. The rest of my family, I'm the youngest of four boys. The rest of my family was a lot older. So for them, it was definitely more of a transition for them. Yeah. But, we landed up in a really caring and good neighborhood. And we grew up, and honestly, we had a pretty solid upbringing. Yeah. We loved sports growing up, and we played all different types of sports and just competed against each other. And me as the youngest, I always wanted to do what my older brothers were doing, whether it was basketball, baseball, football, soccer, track. So, for me, I think my path was probably a little bit easier because I got to see, where they succeeded, mostly succeeded. They didn't really mess up too much. So I had some really great role models in front of me. Yeah. And then ideally, I just kind of matched it and surpassed it. But growing up in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania was good.
Absolutely. Now, life happens and it happens fast. In 1998, unfortunately, your father ends up passing away. And so talk about just the impact of that, not only to you, but to the family dynamic for you guys.
It was tough. It was tough, and it all happened very suddenly. So my dad passed away when I was 10. Yeah. And he passed away from sickle cell anemia. So if you know anything about it, it's a recessive, horrible sickness and disease that happens to different individuals in, call it the belt line of the earth, right? So people who live in like warmer climates. But it's a disease that involves mutation of the blood during crisis, and it impacts different vessels, arteries. And so he went into crisis. Unfortunately, he passed away at that time. And it was tough, man. I'm not gonna lie. We went from, being a decently, call it middle, lower class family to not having any money. I mean, he was the breadwinner of the family.
Right.
So, we went through some really hard times. It was a massive adjustment for a lot of my family. It made a significant imprint on us as a family, as well as our identities.
Yeah.
And when that happened, like any kind of easy button, which there's never an easy button when you're Black in white America.
Yeah.
Any kind of easy pass that we may have had was gone. Mm-hmm. So my family, we had to take some major steps to grow up fast. Luckily, like I said, I have great role models in my brothers, and they led the way there. But sports was a big piece. Right? Yeah. I mean, who knows where we would have been if we didn't have sports in our lives, and if we didn't have a tight knit family at the time. We would have been another statistic. Another Black family in the middle of white America, like out there selling drugs, doing who knows what. Yep. Right. But we had a good head on our shoulders. We had a great community. We were poor. That's for sure, but we weren't poor in friends. We weren't poor in community. We weren't poor in effort, right? I shouldn't say that. We were broke. We weren't poor. Poor is a state of being.
Yes.
Right. So we were broke. We didn't have money.
Yep.
But we made it happen, right?
Yeah.
So we all had jobs growing up, man. We all had jobs. We learned how to have a very strong work ethic at the age of like 8 and up.
Yeah.
I remember my first job was like walking dogs.
Yeah.
And then Excuse me. But after that, I mean, my brothers had jobs. We all had jobs. So we all, fought to support the family, and then, we excelled at sports. But yeah, it was tough. I remember like one time, man, not even one time, for a couple of years until things started to kind of again, right? Never again am I going to be able to, am I going to put myself in a situation where, we're unable to provide for ourselves or for my loved ones, right? So that's kind of stuck with me for a very long time. And I think it stuck with my brothers too. And it's instilled an insane work ethic. And, I think that tragedy that happened was honestly kind of like you said, like, who would have known in the moment, probably one of those things that propelled us to be who we are today.
Absolutely. Now, something I'd love for you to just talk about as we start transitioning part of your story is into the athletic world. But how did that, having a job at 8 and creating that work ethic, how did that impact your desire to work at the sport? I think there's oftentimes a high correlation there of having strong work ethic in a job format that then transitions to sports, or vice versa. You learn it from your sport and then it transitions into your working life.
Great question. Honestly, I think both of those kind of were working in tandem, right? Playing sports since I was like 4 or 5 years old, AYSO soccer, just honing my, my natural skills at that young age, and continued until, until professional. But that builds you with community. So it gives you support all the way around, right? So that, you had your friends through sports. On top of that, it was just a different age. There wasn't cell phones, there wasn't social media, so the best thing you can do, or the most like technology-based thing you could do, was invite your friends over to play Sega, 64, Nintendo, PlayStation, and that was it. Other than that, you were outside playing sports. You're outside playing basketball, baseball, soccer, flag football, whatever it may be, anything you do to compete and move against your friends and your community members was what was fun. Skateboarding, I was a little nerd. I was a little punk when I was growing up. But it hones everything. But you saw your friends and your family members work, so you just did the same thing. Right. Or you tagged along, and while they were at their job, and then all of a sudden you had a job, and now you were getting paid as well, right? Yep. And it was just the norm to do. Like I said, I think we live in a very, very different world where, that kind of work ethic isn't instilled at an early age like it used to be. I think that the distractions that we had were positive distractions, right? Mm-hmm. Yep. We don't have as many negative distractions when we were growing up, and maybe they were negative in hindsight, but for us, it was actually helping us hone skills, right? So definitely super impactful, both sport-wise, which taught us, I mean, we learn everything from sports, let's be real, right? Yeah, sports, absolutely. I think little soapbox moment. Every child should have to play sports. Yeah. And not because of the athletics part of it, because it teaches you social skills. It teaches you how to communicate. It teaches you how to work with individuals that have different beliefs as well as thought processes. It teaches you leadership. It teaches you almost everything you need in life to be. It teaches you structure. All right. It teaches you everything you need to have in life to be successful. And then you can really just take all those little pieces of life lessons and apply it into whether if it's a part-time job as a kid growing up, and ideally that becomes more successful there.
Absolutely. You can be on that soapbox all day. I agree 100% with you. So that's good. So talking about high school athletics, so you're excelling in multiple avenues. You're excelling on the football field, but probably in high school, the sport that you were excelling in most was track and field. So talk a little bit about the, ability to excel at two sports and, what ended up being the deciding factor on where you wanted which one you wanted to pursue in college.
Yeah, man, I love it, man. You definitely did your research.
I tried.
Everyone knows me for football because that's what I did the longest. But in all reality, I was exceptional, and I'm not sure if there's another word above that at track.
Yeah.
But I think and I was young. So, for example, I graduated at 16 years old in high school, right? So
Wow.
2 years below basically everybody with honors too, which was great. But being a multiple sport athlete is it's a lot of time, and you don't really think about it once again because you're doing it with your friends.
Yeah.
And you get in such a routine where if you don't feel like if you're not playing sports, you don't know what to do,
Right.
right? You get bored, you get depressed, you start getting into things you don't need to get into. So it provided that outlet to keep your mind occupied during it. But too super fortunate to be able to excel both in football and track.
Yeah.
Football was one that was just the most fun. Why? Because it was with a team.
Mm-hmm.
No matter how many ways you put it, things are always better with a team, in my opinion, anyway. But naturally, I was a lot better at track and field, right? So at track and field, quick little story of I guess call it the comeback story. I was in ninth grade when I first started throwing javelin, and javelin was my best sport. Shot, jab, disc that I did. I did the 100, 4x1, long jump, high jump, and that was about it. But
just all of them, no big deal. That's about it, though.
Yeah, wherever they need me, I was just there. Quick little story. I broke my ankle in ninth grade throwing a javelin. And it was, I think eighth grade was the first time I ever picked one up.
Yeah.
And then during that summer, it was like April, I don't know, 2002 or something like that.
Yeah.
And during that summer, I grew 4 inches, and I was mediocre at best, but people knew I could throw for how young I was. I was like 13 years old. The next year, I came out and ended up winning states. So I came back from a broken leg, ended up throwing like 197 to win states as a sophomore.
Big.
It was nuts, right? People came out of nowhere. And I was throwing like 180s, in competition, which was pretty good for a sophomore as well.
Absolutely.
But then after that, I basically didn't lose a match after that.
Yeah.
There was one match I did lose, which was states the next year in junior year. And I lost by a margin of about 3 to 4 inches. So I call that a close tie, right?
Absolutely.
After that, I was fully undefeated in javelin. I was the best in the nation, and I broke all the records at my school as well as in the state for javelin. Yeah. And then I won everything you could potentially win. I won Nike Outdoor All-American. What's it called? Associated Press All-American. I won everything. I won Penn relays. Yeah. So I could have potentially gone to school for track and field. But luckily I was also really good at football, right? Yeah. So I made it to the Big 33 and as a defensive end. And I played two ways. So I was a running back and defensive end in football. But football is my passion. It was a lot of fun. All my friends played it. And it's just better to win as a team.
Yep. Absolutely. So yeah, once again, you had a ton of success. And so there's multiple offers that you get to sort through, and it comes down to it. And you decide that Villanova is where you want to take your talents for football. So talk a little bit about, what the reason behind Villanova was and how you end up deciding that would be the school you'd be playing for.
Yeah, so I started getting recruited for sports right around junior year, mostly for the first year was mostly for track. So I had offers from a bunch of different schools across the United States for track, but track at the time wasn't really doing 1 or 2 event offers, right? So it was like partial offers. I always knew I wanted to play football, but I also was hoping I could do both because I naturally knew I was better at track, right? Yeah. And I can go literally my freshman year and probably win some sort of competition immediately.
Right.
And I was throwing like junior nationals for Olympics. but I wanted to do football. So for me, because, education was something that's really important in my family, and my dad was a professor, I wanted to go to a school that had, outstanding education. I also wanted to go to Penn State, but I knew I was going to be a little, a little fish in a big pond.
Yes.
And then I also wanted to go to like UConn, which my brother went to. But then I saw Villanova, excellent school, close here in Philly. So like location wise, it was good. And the football had a really good standing program, right? It wasn't D1 like Penn State, but it was 1AA, so it was really competitive.
Right.
And they were going to allow me to do both football and track.
Got it.
Now that's me being ambitious and not understanding what, how things actually happen when you get to college.
Yeah.
So that didn't last for too long. And unfortunately, I had some things that made the decision even easier. I had 2 surgeries for my shoulders, labrum and rotator cuff shrink, that kind of took that decision out of my control. So ended up having to stick with football, even though I was still 3-stepping like 185 in a javelin. But it was a great decision. I do miss track from time to time. Thinking back on it, like what could have happened? If I would have stuck with it, could I have been Olympics? I think so.
Yeah.
But in the end, ended up being the best decision.
Yeah. So transitioning to college, I mean, there is just a jump that happens when you're in high school and you're talking, 14 to 17-year-old boys, and all of a sudden you get to college and there's, mid 20-year-old men. I mean, it is just, it's a different game, the speed, physicality, size. Talk a little bit about the transition for you from high school, 16, 17 years old, you versus potentially 22, 23-year-old seniors that you're playing against.
Yeah, I think it was always a shock in all reality. Now, I turned 17 right before the season, and I was doing pretty good in camp, but then I had my shoulder issue. So do I think I would have played my freshman year? Probably not. I would probably end up redshirting anyway, just because I was so young.
Yeah.
But I was doing really well in competition during camp. But decided to make, the decision to get the shoulders fixed. Yeah, I mean, they're grown ass men, right? Like, let's be real, like between 17 to 22, there's a lot of changes that happen physically. People were a lot bigger.
Yeah.
And I was a big dude too. I wasn't like small. I think I came in around like 215, and then gained 15 pounds over 15 to 20 pounds over time. But yeah, it's a transition. And the biggest thing that was actually really hard for me was not starting, not playing a sport for a year. I never had that before. Right. And going through 2 surgeries within 4 weeks apart during your freshman year was really tough. So I actually went through a really tough time where I almost considered actually, quitting and transitioning out to a different college because I was depressed. I was on painkillers and drugs the entire time, and my grades were plummeting because I was in a pre-med track for schooling. So my schooling schedule was ridiculous. And I think that freshman year or freshman semester or first semester, I think I had like a 174. Right, I was damn near failing out. It was awful. It was awful. Yeah. It was just a big shock, not just physically. I think it was more of a shock everywhere else but the field, because the field is where I felt comfortable. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. New people, new location, new structures and expectations, and I had no power to control any of it. Right, but you don't just sit there and cry. You say, hey, I got to make a decision, right? Yep. So I made a decision, doubled down, and then, just put in the work. In the end, you got to put in work every single time, whether if I was, 13 recovering from a broken ankle or, 17 recovering from 2 shoulder reconstructions. Yeah. So you double down, you believe in yourself, you follow the process, and you put in the work, and, 4 years later, we won a championship.
Yes. Well, so one thing I want to, just kind of highlight and ask about there, because so many people do, and I think transferring is kind of a metaphor for a lot of things, right? Hey, work's not going well. I got passed up for this promotion. So instead of sticking it out, I'm just going to go to a different company. My relationship's not going the way it is. So I'm going to break up and I'm just going to go find a new relationship. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes those are the answers to the issues, right? I'm not saying every, job, every relationship is the right one. Sometimes that is what you need to do. But sometimes it's taking an introspective look and saying, all right, what about me am I controlling, and what more could I do to make the situation better? Right. And so for you, as you're thinking about that, being 17, 18 years old, was there any, great advice that you got from a coach, a teammate, a brother, or, just as you look back on it, what was the thought process there on staying opposed to maybe thinking, hey, grass is greener elsewhere?
There was one moment that actually was pretty pivotal to me, and I actually still remember this to this day. It has nothing to do with my brothers, has nothing to do with education.
Yeah.
And when I got to college, I was a defensive lineman. I was a defensive end because I had some speed, I had some hands, I can make some sacks.
Yeah.
So after my surgery, this is like spring ball going into the next, sophomore year, right? We were in a defensive meeting, and it was Coach Reardon, and he was having a bad day. Let's put it that way. So we're all getting chewed out, every one of us. And one of the things that he said to me was, he was just like calling people out. And he was like, you, Osayi Osunde, you have the most potential, the most potential, but you're in the wrong position. But you have to realize it. You have to make a change, but you got to decide now. Right. But one of the things that stuck out was the potential.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I think that's also a big reason why I am like the way I think is I get gung ho about potential.
Yeah.
Gung ho about opportunity. Right. And then, even though there's going to be a huge negative, I'm like, but what if?
Yeah.
Right. What if we do this? And that was a catalyst to make me change from linebacker from defensive end to linebacker.
Yeah. And
then my career went from there. Right. Yep. So that was the pivotal moment. And then, of course, transitioning out of that pre-med mess.
Yeah.
And going to psychology, which I absolutely still love. I'm a big fan of the mind and how it works and how people operate. But sometimes you need that one message that just clicks and sits with you somewhere deep, right? Somewhere deep where you say, damn, potential or never again, right? Mm-hmm. And then, you work, you put the work in, and hopefully you're able to realize whatever type of potential you want to realize.
So 2 things I want to highlight from that really stick out to me as you're saying is, one, I think oftentimes, when things aren't going your way, you can get so caught up in you that you could have completely missed what he said, right? You're just so caught up in, no, man, I'm the DN. Like that's my role. Like, I'm not moving a linebacker. This is the position I've always played. Like, why would you do that to me now? And you can almost miss that. What you heard was, oh, well, you got potential to be actually better at this other spot. So I think sometimes it's getting out of your own way. But the second thing, and I'd like you to chime in on this, is that when someone sees something in you, whether you see it or not, sometimes it happens before you see it, right? Like that, hey, you got the most talent out here. You got the most potential out here. But now you got to go do something with it. So talk about the power of someone seeing something in you, in the confidence that can help bring.
Well, it could do one or two things. It can either scare you away from it.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
That's what happens 90% of the time.
Yeah.
Right. The people who actually step up and do something about it, are the ones that have the steel and I guess trust in themselves, their own individual confidence that they can move forward and ideally, succeed in anything they want to do. Yeah. And I think the person who says that needs to tell it to the person at the right time.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So if you were to tell me that in high school, like, no, I'm a running back and I'm a defensive end. Like I'm a beast at this. Like,
yeah.
Nah. Right. But if you've told me, he told me at a time where I was broken and all I wanted to do was get back on the field.
Yeah.
That was it. Right. Because we had 2 All-American defensive ends, and maybe I wouldn't have been playing as much, right? And I still got playing time as a sophomore, doing a little bit of both defensive end as well as linebacker. But I think the timing is super important, and I think the individual needs to be at a place mentally and emotionally where they're courageous enough to say, hey, maybe he's right. And it takes courage to look into to say, hey, maybe there's a different option.
Yep.
Right? It takes courage to say, I'm not right. Ego will say, I'm right. This is moving forward. But if you have courage to say, hey, maybe I do need some help. What if this is a better way?
Yeah.
Dip your foot into it. And if the water's warm, keep on pedaling. You feel me?
I love it.
So I think that is the biggest thing. But like I said, 90% of the time, it's going to scare people away. So you got to be ready. You got to hear it at the right time.
Yeah, that's good. So one thing that was interesting to me that doesn't have a ton to do with the actual sport of football, but it had to do with every single football game was you wrote on your tape three letters. Talk about what that meant to you and what that would continue to just remind you of with the FAM.
Fam. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always about the family,
Yeah.
no matter what. You know what I mean? I used to write it on. It was on my calling card for the plays, and I think I also wrote it on my tape on my ankles. You know, in the end, like because of who we are and what we are, the family is always the people that got me there, and it's not just it was not just my direct family. Most of the time, 80% of it is that, but also my closest friends growing up who are still my closest friends now, right? Those are the ones who encouraged me to play all these different sports because they were playing it, and they always came to my games. So it's all about the fam, and they gave me a lot of motivation, encouragement. They picked me up when I was down. They beat me down when I was too up. It set me right. And in the end, it gave me purpose to try to keep pushing when sometimes you didn't want to push or weren't hurt, when you didn't think you go any further, and when you just didn't want to wake up and do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Now you hinted at it earlier already. 2009 senior year, you guys win the national championship. And additionally, that year, you got a pretty cool individual accolade, and that was the male athlete of the year. So just talk about that season and the confidence that gave you and just the opportunity to win as a team.
Yeah, 2009 was a dope year. 2009 going to 10, but an outstanding team. And in all honesty, I think we may have actually had a better team the year before.
Wow.
But I think we had too many injuries too late in the game to really get to where we needed to be. And from, taking, I was a captain of the football team, but from taking a leadership position, and we had a moment, actually. We had a moment where it was our captains, it was early in the season, or may have even been preseason, where the captains, without the coaches, sat everybody down. We were like, yo, we have a team, we have a huge opportunity. There's that word again, opportunity, potential to do something great here. It was me, Phil Matus, and what's my boy's name? Was it Mike? No, what's his name? I forget the other guy's name right now, but it'll come back to me. But it was me and Phil Matus. We set the team down, and we said, this is what we need to do. We need to double down.
Yeah.
Right? Because we were this close the year before. We had a lot of returning seniors who had a ton of experience. And I think that leadership really drove us to just dominating through the entire year. And our defense was powerful.
Yeah.
Like, I think throughout the entire year, our defense averaged like close to, I think we had, 79 yards rushing per game for the offenses.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we held teams underneath like 100 yards rushing per game. It was sick. And our offense was powerful too. I mean, we had weapons on, the outside, the inside, and the quarterback, was a kind of a Tim Tebow type quarterback. But everything was clicking, man. We had one time that we played New Hampshire, and no one showed up. No one showed up for the game. We got beat by like 7 or something like that up in New Hampshire, and it left a really miserable taste in the mouth for the rest of the year. Yeah. And the next time we saw them, we blew them out by 50 points.
Isn't that crazy how that can happen?
It was amazing. It was a beautiful snowstorm home at Villanova. But we had a team of athletes. We had a team of individuals who believed in each other and wanted to see each other win and wanted to do it together. And I think, one of the things one of the mantras we had was tap the rock. And I'm not sure if you see this thing here. Yeah. It says, what does it say? It says pound the stone until it's broken. It's very similar to the tap the rock mantra. It's really like, hey, like, listen, like, you're going to have this. It was actually about a story about the parable about the stone cutter who was cutting, and I think like into a piece of marble, and he's there tapping on this rock, tapping, nothing's happening. 1,000 taps, 2,000 taps. People were saying that he's a naysayer, he's a horrible artist, et cetera, et cetera. And then on like the 5,000th tap, the rock finally broke. Yeah. And he was able to create a masterpiece from then on, right? So it's really
Yep.
about perseverance,
Mm-hmm.
continue to go through when it's hard, right? And then
Yep.
when it breaks, magic can happen. So that was our motto for the year, and it still is a motto over at Villanova. But I think that motto really helped us get to the championship game.
Yeah.
And the championship game was down in Chattanooga, Tennessee against Montana. These guys were basically an offensive line. They had the offensive line of the NFL.
Yeah.
6'5" all the way across. And we were like, dang, these guys are big. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Stat for stat, we shouldn't have won, right? Because they had just straight up NFL caliber, and a bunch of people actually ended up going to the NFL.
Yeah.
And I had a torn hamstring or torn quad into hip flexor, had an 8-inch tear. I played as much as I could before I couldn't walk anymore. But it wasn't just me. Our defensive end had a broken hand. Our running back had a hamstring issue. D end messed up shoulder. Like, it was injuries all over the board. But through just persevering and just a lot of guts, we were able to win it basically in the last like 30 seconds of the game. It was a magical moment, man. It was special.
Absolutely. So this, parlays into a pro day and getting the opportunity to, have a chance to go to the NFL. So talk about, getting that phone call and getting an opportunity to, work out with the Packers.
It was, I'm blessed, man. I'm super, super fortunate to have that opportunity. I know, like, I was recovering from that injury, so I wasn't at the peak of where I used to be. I used to be able to run like a 4.5 40, 4.54. 40, and then I think I ended up running a 4.72. I wasn't even supposed to be running or healed at the time, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
But I came there at my best of my ability, my best of skill set, and for the pro day, put up some decent numbers, nothing too crazy. And then still had an opportunity to get called by the Packers after the draft and give it a shot. So went to camp. I thought I played the best football I've ever played.
Yep.
But it's not college anymore. It's a business. And things were going really well. Had a ton of positive feedback. Everyone's like, "Yo, you're gonna make it. You're gonna be on the team. You're gonna be playing." And unfortunately, they already had. This is when they had AJ Hawk, Brady Papinga, Clay Matthews. They had all Pro Bowl linebackers.
Yep.
And I think they picked up 2 linebackers in the draft as well. So it was going to be a tough team to make. But it was one of the best experiences I've ever had. And then from there, I parlayed that into leading Team USA.
Yes.
Into a world championship, and I was a captain of that as well. So that was honestly one of the highlights of my life.
Absolutely. Now, something that I always think is interesting, anyone that's played sports at a serious level or has made it a large part of their life, oftentimes as that comes to the playing consistently comes to an end, there's a piece of you that you almost have to reinvent, right? Because for so long it's, I'm a football player, I'm a basketball player, I'm a this, and all of a sudden it's not that you're not that anymore, but there's, it's not on Saturdays, that's what you're doing. So talk just about that for you, whether it's the mental side of things or just how you kind of work through that, if you did at all. Maybe you were more developed than most.
No, it happens to all athletes.
Yeah.
Because like you said, it's an identity crisis. And it's a hole in your life. It's a massive hole you got to try to figure out how to fill, right? I call it the void.
Yeah.
So this happened to me probably from the age like 23 until probably like 24, 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say 24. And you just don't know where you are. You don't know, something that's been in your life, sports, for X amount of time is just no longer there. Now you got to fill it with something.
Yeah.
So luckily I was fortunate enough where, I had a master's degree from Villanova. And, I had something to at least fall back on, right? Education-wise and job-wise. So that filled up the main portion of the day, but then you still just kind of left without a purpose.
Yeah.
Right. So I started to fill it up with things that I knew made me feel good: fitness, working out, trying to stay active, joining different little intramural sports groups here in Philadelphia. And then I realized that was not for me because, number one, all those people don't know how to play the sport. And
yes.
when you play with people that don't know how to play the sport, you end up getting hurt. Not
That's
them.
right. That's right.
So I gave that up real quick. I hung my cleats fully after that. I'm like, nope, I'm done. I had too many shoulder issues and back issues. I'm like, this isn't worth it. First off, you're not paying me.
Yep.
No one's, I'm not winning a championship. It's not worth it. My insurance don't cover this stuff.
That's right.
So I started working out, and soon enough, people saw what I was doing in the gym, and I was living in like Manayunk at the time, and they're like, "Yo, this dude's like, it's kind of diesel." And like, people, it's funny. So let me pull back real quick. People don't realize that there's been 15 years of work that's been put in making my body.
Right.
Like 15 years. If you're willing to dedicate 15 years of your life to look a certain way, then you could have the same body too.
Yep.
Right. Or you can dunk a basketball too, or you could play, at an X amount. People don't realize the amount of work that's actually been put into it. So when they see me at the gym, they're like, man, this guy's out here killing it. It's standing there. I want to have a body like you. I'm like, hey, cool. Bet. Let's work out.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. Right.
Yeah.
People just wanted to work out with me. I said, cool, I got some extra time. Here's what I'm doing, do it with me. And then they started getting some like insane results, like 20, 30 pounds lost, crazy weights in their numbers. And then it started to click to me. I was like, you know what, like, I should probably start getting paid for this.
Yeah.
Right. But that's how I kind of filled it. And I also filled it with modeling too. So this is really diving into fitness. And then that started happening at the same time. So I was like, all right, well, if I'm gonna like get in shape, I might as well like look into like, I had a friend that did some modeling. He's like, hey, talk to my agent. I'm like, bet, no problem. Talk to him. And then it just took off. So now I had a reason, I had a purpose to stay in shape, not just to go work my 9 to 5 in an office desk, which was cool. It gave me some purpose there, but it wasn't really that fulfilling.
Yeah.
Now I had something that I knew that I could control, right? Modeling and going to castings and getting gigs. But so now staying in shape nonstop for modeling gigs, and then fitness modeling. So like I was working, my agency was at the time Silver Model Management, and then now it's a Brown Management Group.
Yeah.
So one of the top, fitness modeling groups in, the United States, specifically in New York. And I think I was just fortunate. I think I got the second casting, and it was for like a Vitamin Shop nationwide campaign.
Yeah.
And then I just got more and more castings and started landing gigs, from Vitamin Shop to Van Heusen for the NFL to Fanatics to working directly with the NFL for 2 years to Under Armour. I was an Under Armour model for about 1.5 years, 2 years. Commercials, Comcast, Verizon, and then my biggest gig was, with Visa, which was massive for another Super Bowl ad and commercials too. So I just got super lucky and super fortunate. I had a look that they wanted, and it's like I said, just fortunate and a lot of hard work. But it wasn't easy. Like New York's the biggest market almost in the world for this, and there's a million dudes that look literally like me and better.
Stop it. That's not true. If you're listening to this, if you're not watching this guy is a handsome dude.
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's kind of what happened in tandem with fitness.
So one thing that I wanted to ask about with models, we've had a few different models on the show, and one thing that they talked about was it was oftentimes one of the first times in their life where they were being told no. And it was truly based on like the way you look, right? I mean, like it's not, hey, you're a really good person, so we're going to put you in this. It's like, well, sorry, you just don't have the look we're going for. And they talked about how that kind of messed with their mental psyche, right? Because, man, that makes me question well, gosh, how do other people perceive me and things? So for you, was there any mental warfare that went on, in that process? I know you said, hey, second, casting, I got the job. So, I mean, maybe that early confidence helped, but talk a little bit about that for you.
That's a great question. I don't think I really did have that kind of mental warfare when it came to castings.
Yeah.
I never looked at it that way.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a few reasons why. It was a hobby for me, right? It was just something that gave me an outlet for my creative side to tap into. And if I was fortunate enough to get a gig, I was gonna kick that gig's ass and crush it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think I really came into every single opportunity was I'm gonna shoot my best shot.
Yep.
right? I'm going to shoot my best shot. And if I hit it, great, let's rock.
Mm-hmm.
And if not, hey, I tried, right? Because I wouldn't have had the opportunity if I didn't take the shot.
Absolutely.
Right. So, there was definitely some times where you had cold streaks. But like I said, it was part-time for me. And I mean, there's people that live and die by the modeling industry, and that's all they do. They need to work 2 or 3 different jobs just to make ends meet while they work towards their passion. I just didn't have that battle because I was working on other things behind the scenes that, were driving me and fulfilling me in different ways.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, you're working out in the gyms, you're staying fit for modeling and just for your personal enjoyment. And people start picking up and they say, gosh, this guy doesn't look like most people that work out. I want to know what the heck he's doing. I want to be working out with him. And so you mentioned it started catching steam because you were having success and people were seeing results. Now, usually the spot is not oftentimes that first month or two when you can see quick results. It's the next 4 months where it's like, all right, the quick results happen. And now it's not as exponential, it's more incremental, changes, developments. How do you coach the folks that attend your gym now through those, I guess we'll call them kind of like, I don't know, intermediate moments where it's like, all right, I've seen some results, but now I'm not seeing, the results that I had already been seeing.
Oh man. Okay. The best you can. And here's why. Now I've been doing this now for, damn near a decade, 7, 8 years. And I've had an opportunity to interact with well over 10,000 people.
Yeah.
And from there, you can see a lot of different personalities, right? And what I'll tell you is it starts with your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
The people who are gifted and really look good fall off just as fast as the people who are 100 pounds overweight and need to actually make a change.
Yeah.
But the difference really starts with, number one, their mindset about truly making a change, and I call it steel. They have to have the steel in reserve to truly want to make that change, and their why, right? And those are the ones who really get the best results. And unfortunately, we are bombarded by a lot of fallacies when it comes to social media.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you how many people I talk to on a weekly basis that say, hey, I want to come in, I want to have that apple bottom, that peach, I want to work with my booty, I'm getting ready for bikini. Listen, I get it. I used to model. I want to look fucking good.
Right? Yeah, right.
There's nothing wrong with that. But they're seeing what people put out on Instagram and social media, and it puts an unrealistic expectation for them because they think they can get that in 2 to 3 weeks. They think they get that even in 4 weeks, 4 months, 5 months.
Right.
Like, bro, you got 100 pounds to lose. How do you expect yourself to get that in 5 months? It's not going to happen. That's a very unhealthy mental expectation.
Yeah.
Right. So that drives a lot more. Oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I can't do it. Oh, this, that, and a third. When what we try to do is really try to help people see that, hey, this is a marathon, bro.
Yeah.
Right. And if you want to get to your marathon, you better take that first step. And it's not gonna stop there. Then you got to take the next step, and you got to do that every single day continuously. You may fall off track a few times, but you got to do that every single day until you finish that damn marathon.
Yep.
And if you're ready for that marathon, then great, let's go.
Yeah.
Right?
I love it. I think what you said originally is, what's that compelling reason why you're doing it, right? That, hey, it's snowy and I don't really want to go. No, do you have a compelling reason as to why you're going to get past the aches and pains, or you're going to get past, whatever it is? I think that's really good. And then I think the second thing you talked about is, what sells is easy, right? If somebody produced a book and it said, here is a way to live a long, healthy life, and it said, make sure to work out 6 days a week and eat a good, healthy diet, no one would buy that, right? That's boring. No, I want the 5 easy steps to having, 6-pack abs in a month, or, by summer, whatever it is. And it's like that sells, but it also provides a unrealistic expectation of, to your point, the results that are going to come.
100%. One of the biggest things that I learned over the last, over my career now owning business is learn how to market. Because in the end, people want to hear what they want to hear.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
So market to what they want to hear.
Right.
Luckily, we have a damn good conscience on our side, right? Where in the end, we're going to help you get to where you need to be.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to sell you what you want to hear. I'm going to give you what you need.
Yes.
And through that, you'll become a better, you'll achieve your goals. And ideally, you'll hopefully learn some things along the way. We become a better human as well. Right.
Yes. Yes. I love it. Well, so I've appreciated your time, man, and sharing your story, all the amazing things that have happened. I mean, the pivotal moments that have led you from, being the young brother, but still, growing up to have a great success and now running your own business. I can't wait to continue to follow your journey and all the things you're going to continue to do. But, anything that's on the radar next that we need to, make sure to be looking out for you on.
I think right now it's really just we're all recovering from the pandemic.
Yep.
Right. I was fortunate enough to have a decent year and a half. This year's been really solid. But one of the things that great coaches do is do the same thing over and over again at a very good level. It doesn't have to be great for a very long time. Right. So I think for me, it's really just continue to double down on my team, on our community here in Philadelphia, and ideally, continue to change the lives here. But I had some other ideas that I want to, a couple little passion projects. I'm always working on something, me. I'm always working on something in the background, and hopefully I'll be able to get those off the ground and see some fruit from that, and be able to have some fun along the way. But apart from that, we're just gonna keep changing lives and making an impact here in our community.
Man, well, I can't wait to follow it. I appreciate you, brother, and we'll look forward to following up soon.
Cool, man. Phil, appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.